a verse that that means shofar but doesn't say they're a shofar. So we're going to have a discussion here in the Gemara about some of these laws. Okay, so we are on. Good to see Adam is back. Good morning. We are on 32b. This is the place to be, right, everybody? We're on 32b. 32b2. 32b2 on the top. Zamru Elokim Zameru. Zamru Lamalkenu Zameru. Kimelech Kol Haaretz Elokim. Right? So every pasuk is beautiful. Everyone got it? 32b2. Got it, Adam? Yehuda, you got it? So it says, here's the pasuk. And we know you're supposed to ideally mention, and l'chatchila, you're supposed to mention 10 verses of Zichronot. So this verse happens to be, so we have, this pasuk says, let's sing a song to our God, right? That's who we should sing the song to. Sing the song to our Lamalkenu, to our king. Ki melech kol haaretz elokim. The pasuk says that Hashem is the melech kol haaretz. He is the king of the whole land. These are two psukim. The first pasuk ends Zamru elokim zameru Zamru Lamalkenu zameru. That's pasuk number 1. Pasuk number 2 is Ki melech kol haaretz elokim zameru. So the first opinion says, Shtayim, you get credit for 2 psukim, 2 verses of kingship, because the pasuk says melech twice. It says Malkenu, ki melech kol haaretz. There's 2 psukim, so it seems that you should get credit for 2 out of the 10 verses that you need to say. Sounds good. What's the issue? What is the other? That's the Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says. However, Rabbi Yehuda says no. Achat. You only can count it as 1. Why can you only count it as 1? Good morning, Ralph. So Rashi says because this verse, the pasuk opens Zamru Lamalkenu. Sing to our king. Our king seems to indicate he's our king, but it doesn't say that he's everybody's king, the world's king, right? The world power, world king, that he's the king of the world. And therefore the second opinion says that it's invalid. You can't count it as a verse because the verse has to indicate that Hashem is the king of the world, not just the Jewish people's king. So that is the concern of Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda says no. Rabbi Yehuda achat. You only can count it as 1 of the verses. You don't get that verse that says Zamru Lamalkenu is not counted as a verse for Melech Malchil. However, the Shavin, they both agree. Ki malach b'malach elokim al goyim. Hashem is ruler. He rules over the nations, right? Elokim yoshav al kisei kodsho, and he sits on his holy throne. Good to see you, Ralph. Shehi achat. It is only counted as what? As one. Now, why? What would be the havamina? What would you think why should you count it as 2? Because when it says that Elokim yoshav al kisei kodsho, that he's sitting on his holy throne, you might have thought that perhaps sitting on the throne you might count that as a kingship, right? He's sitting on his throne, but that's he's not going to count that as kingship. I presume the idea would have been that by the fact that it says he's on his throne, his holy throne, you might have said that's you should count it. And maybe the reason why you don't count it is maybe because it doesn't say that his throne is at that point is over the whole world. Someone could have a throne over a certain country, right? You have your throne, your kisei kacho, perhaps, but it doesn't say that your kisei kacho is. But again, but that would not. That only explains the opinion that says you have to be over the whole world. But the other opinion that says that you don't need to be over the whole world, um, even Zamrul Malkeinu counts. Still, he would hold in this case that's not that's not good enough. The fact that perhaps you could say, you know, if you have the word melech, kingship, even if it's over one country, us, the Jewish community. So the first opinion says that's good enough. It meets the bar. You could go ahead and count it as kingship. But when there's two things deficient, when you don't have the word melech, and it also does not indicate, and it's not saying it's over the whole world, so then maybe that's a problem. Meaning, what the Gemara is going to say, right? Because he says the rabbi said Zamrul Malkeinu is good enough. If you say Malkeinu, our God, our King is good enough. Yet he holds in this case, where you don't say the word Melech, it's not good enough. Why not? What's the difference? I'm thinking perhaps because not only it doesn't say the word Melech, but it does not indicate over all of the Jewish community. So if you over the whole world, so if you don't indicate over the whole world, at least you have to have the word Melech on it. So maybe that's his issue. Okay. Now the Gemara continues. Zikaron sheyesh bo trua. Let's say you have a pasuk, and the pasuk contains a zikaron. It talks about the language of zichronot, remembering, right? Hashem is going to remember, Hashem remembers the Jewish people. Hashem remembers like the Brit, the Brit of Abraham. Different verses that talk about remembrances, but it does not mention the word shofar. It mentions the word trua, which we opened up earlier. Say trua that refers to shofar. How do you do the trua? Is a breaking sound, what we call a trua sound. Either there's a question. We're going to see a question. What is the appropriate trua sound? Is trua tu 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 tu? Is trua tu tu tu? What we call a shvarim, or is a trua a combo of what we call a shvarim trua, right? But how do you do that trua? You do it with a shofar. So if I have a verse that mentions the word trua, do I get credit if I say that verse? Do I get credit as if I mentioned shofar? Or it's not good enough. The synonym, even though it refers to shofar, but if it doesn't say it outright, it's not good enough. Just like the previous point. So that's what the Gemara says. The koron sheyesh bo trua, higon shabbaton zichron trua mikra kodesh. When it says Shabbaton Zichron Trua Mikra Kodesh, so this pasuk it says Zichron. It has a language of Zichronot, so it definitely should fit for Zichronot. It mentions Zichron in the pasuk, but it also says Trua. So the Gemara says. Omra im zichronot. You could say you have a choice. Not only a choice, you have a right to double dip is the expression. You could use this verse both when you're saying zichronot, you could use it as zichronot. And when you're saying the 10 verses for shofar, you could use this also as a verse for shofar. Omra im shofrot, divrei Rabbi Yossi. So you could say Omra im zichronot, Omra im shofrot. You could say it both. You could say this verse 2 times. And you'll get credit. When you're mentioning zichronot, you can mention it, and when you're mentioning shofrot, you can mention it. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Eina omre ela im zichronot." Rabbi Yehuda says you only could say it with zichronot. If it does not say it openly in the verse, if it doesn't say openly in the verse the word shofar, you can't go ahead. You can't count it as shofar. That's what he says. So now the commentaries are going to ask the question, why wouldn't we have learned this from the previous halacha, right? The previous halacha says that he holds if it's not mentioned openly in the verse, you can't count it, right? He said beforehand, if it says, you see, there is a chidush here. See, there's a chidush over here by this pasuk, because really, I think the fact that the Torah does not refer to shofar openly by Rosh Hashanah, so you might think the fact that the Torah doesn't, and the fact that the Torah refers to it as truah, so maybe this would be good enough, because when something is generally referred to by its name, so that maybe you would say, okay, you must say that one. But the fact that the Torah itself refers to the shofar when by Rosh Hashanah in a way of truah, so you might think that maybe that should be good enough. So it's a big chidush to say that even if I use a verse that mentions truah, and truah is really the way the Torah refers to shofar, Rosh Hashanah, still you don't even get, and even this pasuk, that this pasuk is actually the pasuk that says the mitzvah of shofar. This is the pasuk that says, on the seventh month, the first day, Shabbaton Zichron Truah Mikra Kodesh. So it's referring to shofar, and nevertheless, he has a big chidush. He says at the end of the day, if it doesn't say the word shofar in it, you shouldn't use it. So that's a chidush of Rabbi Yossi, of Rabbi Yehuda, that he says he does not count it. Now, so then the Gemara says similarly, malchut, if you have a malchut sheyesh yemot, you have malchut. You have a verse that mentions malchut, that mentions kingship, but it also says truah together with in the same pasuk. Kagon, Hashem elakav imo, Hashem, his God is with them. Hashem is with the Jewish people. Utruat melech bo, and there's the truat melech, is that there's a friendship. Truat could also from the word reyut, like a friend, re'afta re'acha. The truat, there is the friendship of Hashem is with the Jewish people. That is how some translate this pasuk. There's a great love, but also you could explain the pasuk of truat. It's referring to the truat. There is the blowing of the shofar that was done in the Jewish camps when it was time to go ahead. When it was time to go ahead and travel. They would blow. So the verse mentions truah, so which could refer to the shofar as well. It could refer to truah over there. It could refer to the friendship of Hashem with the Jewish people, the closeness that God has with the Jewish people, but also it could refer to the blowing of the blowing. So that's verse that mentions kingship and also mentions truah. So would you be able to say this verse for sure? You definitely get credit. You could say this verse for kingship because it mentions kingship, but it does not mention shofar, but it mentions truah. So would you be able to use this verse? So again, the same machloket. So Divrei Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says, Efshela omra, you could omra im malchiyut, omra im shofrot. You could use this verse both for shofar and both for malchut, even though it doesn't say the word shofar, but it means shofar. The word truah means shofar. So since it means shofar, you get credit as if you said a verse of shofar without, even though the verse did not mention the word shofar openly, but the fact that it's referring to a shofar is good enough. You don't have to, sometimes you could say something, if you mean it, that's as if you said it. It's the context that that's what it means. So if I have to say asaf, I have to say verses of shofar. And we're supposed to talk about, because Hashem says, I want you to talk about the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. Because if you talk about the shofar, that's going to be a merit for you. Not only you blow the shofar, you talk about shofar. Not only do you, that's what I want, that's for your benefit. And we'll talk about the shofar of Har Sinai. We have a few psukim that so what do we talk about from the Torah? We bring verses that talk about the shofar of Har Sinai. That's going to be a great merit for the Jewish community, right? The shofar of Har Sinai on Rosh Hashanah, which the world is judged, and the whole world was dependent on Har Sinai. The whole world, the existence of the world is dependent by Adam accepting the Torah, by the Jewish people accepting the Torah. So the whole world, the merit of the world stands on the Torah. So therefore, that by mentioning Har Sinai, that would be a great merit on Rosh Hashanah for the world to exist by talking about shofar of Har Sinai. But if I talk about shofar without saying the word shofar, but I mean shofar, is that good enough? You know, there's a halacha of I can't say you Asaf, we can't talk bad about each other, right? What about if you don't mention me by name, but you mean me? You mean exactly me, you know, the one who gives the class at 6:45 in the shul. That's the one. And where's the beer and where's glasses? Now, in front of a laptop, facing the congregation. Now, standing up. Now, right, Ralph? Now, you're going to say, I didn't mention Rabbi Friedman. I just said the man who gives the class 6:45 in the morning. But you read that. Who are you referring? You said Rabbi Friedman without saying it. You said it, just like the laws of lashon hara. If you say something, if someone says something bad about somebody, but I didn't mention it by name, but everybody knows who you're talking about. There's no difference that means you said it about the person. The fact that you alluded to it, you hinted to it, and you didn't say him by name, but everybody knows who you're talking about. So if we need to talk about shofar, and I have a verse that actually means shofar, but it's not called shofar technically in the verse. It doesn't say the word shofar in the verse. Is that good enough or not? That seems to be the argument here in the Gemara. One says you need to have a verse that mentions openly, because if it mentions shofar openly, that's going to be a greater merit on the day. But may mention. The other rabbi says that you don't have to say it. You don't have to say it. You don't have to say openly. If that's what it means, that's what it means, right? So that seems to be part of the discussion over here. But again, the commentaries are going to ask, especially regarding this case and the case before. If you told me beforehand that if you have a verse that has zichronot and truah, they argue, can you count it as truah, as shofar, because it doesn't say the word shofar openly. So shouldn't there be the same argument? You have a verse that has malchiot, kingship, and truah. Can you count it as the shofar as well? And so why do we need to tell me the same argument again? So that's one of the questions that the commentaries will deal with. So that's what Rabbi Yehuda says, Eino Omer ela malchut b'var. Rabbi Yehuda says you only could count it with kingship. If it doesn't say the word shofar inside, it just says the word truah, you can't go ahead and count it as shofar. Now here comes the third case. Now the Gemara says, truah she'eni ma v'lo klum. So let's say we are now on 32b, 2, right? So and the bottom line of the first column, 32b2 and bottom line. Truah she'eni ma v'lo klum. Let's say I have a verse. So this verse mentions truah, but it's not overshadowed by the word malchut or zichronot. It doesn't have that. It just says the word truah. So now, kagom yom truah yeh lechem. The Torah says, there's another pasuk that says about the 7th month, the first day of the month, which is Rosh Hashana. Morning, Isaac. What does the Gemara say? Yom truah yeh lechem. It's a day of truah. Efsha. So Omra ima shofar. So Rabbi Yossi says, no question. Rabbi Yossi says, if it says truah, and truah refers to shofar, so you could say that, you could count that as a verse of shofar. I gotta say 10 verses that talk about shofar. And the Gemara said earlier, the 10 verses, you take some from Chumash, some from Navi, some from Ketuvim, right? We've got a nice challenge of verses from different parts of the 24 books of Tanakh. We got 5 books of Moshe, and all. We have a big challenge. So you could count if you want to use a verse to fulfill your requirement of 10 verses about shofar. You could use a verse that says Yom Teruah Yelachem. However, Rabbi Yehuda says Eina Omer Kol Ikar. Yehuda says if it does not say the word shofar, again, if it doesn't say the word shofar, doesn't count. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Now, the Gemara continues. Matchil b'Torah umashlim b'Navi. The Mishnah stated that you're supposed to open up with Torah. Give respect to the Torah first. By the way, in life, order of things is very important. On Pesach, it's called the Seder Shel Pesach. And in life, the way you talk, the way you organize what you say first, what you say second, makes a big deal, right? How you organize your words, how you give respect. So it seems the Mishnah stated, Matchil b'Torah, you got to go ahead and give honor when you're saying the verses, right? Now we say you're going to be saying verses from Chumash, Nevi'im, Mektuvim. So who do you say first? What is the appropriate order of respect and how you say which verses come first, which come second, and which will be the concluding. So it says you open up with Torah. You open up with verses from the Torah, and umashlim bin Navi. And you conclude with verses from the Navi. This is the first opinion of the Mishnah. Now, Tosfos pointed out that it would seem to go on the chronological order of the writings of the 24 books of Moshe. Because first you have he says you have the Chumash, and then you have the Ketuvim. You have like Shlomo HaMelech writing Mishlei and Iyuv. They came before all the Nevi'im of Yeshaya, Zechariah, the Treya. So all of those Nevi'im, those books of Ketuvim, which is called the writings, preceded. So therefore, you'll start with the Chumash, then you go to Ketuvim, and then you go to, like I think the way we say it in the Musaf. What'd you say? But here, Simon, Tosfos points out your point that usually we say Katuv b'Torah, and then the Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. But in the order of on Rosh Hashana is Torah, Ketuvim, and Nevi'im. Different than the normal way that we're used to. And Tosfos says because we're focusing on the order, what came really more first. The Ketuvim came more with Ketuvim, chronologically came more before. Therefore, we focus on that. And that is the first opinion of the Mishnah. Now we're going to see we end by the way in practice we end with the pasuk of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad for Malchiyot. We end with Torah, by the way. In practice, we end with Torah. The first opinion says you end with Navi, but we're going to see the Gemara is going to discuss our practical law. But if you recall, I think the way it's in the Musaf, it says like this. As a kakatuv b'Torah, when we refer to the verses of the Chumash, it's a kakatuv b'Toratecha. It says via Torah, then we say the verses of the Chumash. When we refer to the psukim of the Ketuvim, we say, as it said, kakatuv ayidei divrei katshecha. I think it says in your holy words. And when we refer to when we're about to bring the psukim of verses of prophets, kakatuv ayidei neviecha. Let's see. It's 3 different languages. When we introduce it, the verses from the Torah, it's kakatuv b'Toratecha, as I said Torah. Verses from the Ketuvim is referred to as divrei katshecha. Your holy words. and refers to Navi, it's Naviecha. So now it says like this. Good morning. So it says, Matchil b'Torah u'mashlim b'Navi. And Rabbi Yossi Omer, what does Rabbi Yossi say? Im hishlim b'Torah yotza. If you did not conclude with Navi, but you concluded with a verse from the Chumash, you are yotze. You fulfill your obligation, which seems to indicate the Gemara says, Im hishlim, if you went ahead and you concluded, the eved in. It only works after the fact. You know, there's something called lechatchila. There's the ideal way to do something. Then there's something, you know what, I didn't do it the ideal way. I was supposed to drive 55 miles an hour, but I drove 65, 60 miles. Okay, maybe you still get credit. But sometimes you went ahead and you didn't say a bracha on your lulav and etrog. You were supposed to say a bracha before you take the lulav etrog properly. That's how you're supposed to do it. But if you did not say the bracha and you took the lulav etrog without the bracha, you get credit for the mitzvah. You're supposed to say a bracha before you put a mezuzah on your door. But if you put it up and you didn't say a bracha, you got credit for the mitzvah. So the Gemara says there's something called lechatchila b'di'ev. So, but the language of im hishlim, if you did it if you concluded with Torah, indicates that the eved works lechatchila lo, but you're not supposed to conclude with a verse from the Torah according to this language of the Mishnah. But the Gemara says, "Vatanya, we have a brayta." What does the brayta say? Rabbi Yossi says, "Hamashlim b'Torah." If you conclude the verses, these verses that you need to mention on Rosh Hashana, and I like to say the idea: it's not enough to do an action, not enough to blow the shofar. You got to talk about the shofar. You got to talk about kingship. So what do we say? Rabbi Yossi Omer, Harizem Meshubach. That's the best thing. That's very praiseworthy. Like, where do we have the word Harizem Meshubach, everybody? On the Pesach, the night of the Seder, it says, the more you talk about the Exodus, that's very praiseworthy. So here he's saying that the ideal thing is to mention, to conclude with a verse of the Torah. So the Gemara is asking an apparent contradiction between the language of our Mishnah and the language of the Braita. You know, these are the Braita and the Mishnah were at the same time period. The Braita usually explains the Mishnah, and here they seem to be going at odds in what Rabbi Yossi holds. So what is the real opinion of Rabbi Yossi? Is Rabbi Yossi's opinion the way we have it recorded in the Mishnah, or his opinion the way we have recorded in the Braita? Did he ever change his mind? Was one writing before and he changed? So what is the story? So the Gemara says you have to say the Mishnah really, the statement that he said that it's praiseworthy to conclude with Torah is the more proper reading, and therefore Ema, you have to say that in the Mishnah mashlim. The Rabbi Yossi, instead of saying the word im hishlim, don't interpret Rabbi Yossi that if you only after the fact you get credit if you concluded with the verse of the Torah. Rather, say mashlim. That is the way to go. Lechatchila, you're supposed to go ahead and conclude with a verse from the Torah. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? How can you tell me that that's what he means? The Mishnah says if you concluded with a verse from the Torah, which the word im in the if means only if you did it, but not that you should have done it. So the Gemara says, this is what you have to, this is how you have to read the Mishnah. Matchil b'Torah. You are supposed to start with a verse from the Torah. Umashlim b'Navi. That's the first opinion. The first opinion says you start with verses from the Torah, then you go to Ketuvim, then you go to Nevi'im, and you got 10 on the deal. Make sure you get 10 verses. There's a minimum of 10. You can do more. There's a minimum of 10. 10's a big number, as we said. Why 10? The Gemara says either 10 because of the 10 commandments, or because of the, and at 10 commandments there was the shofar, so therefore you want to bring, that's why 10, or the world was created with 10 ma'amorot, right? 10 utterances of Hashem. Hashem said there should be light. There was light. Morning. Torah says a lot of different. Hashem said there should be, luminaries in the world. There should be ma'orot. There should be the sun. There should be the moon. And here comes Mark talk about the sun, and we got Mark walks in. So the Torah talks about different statements of Hashem. Baruch she'amah. Baruch she'amah. Have a great day, Mark. It says Hashem. It says Baruch she'amah. Hashem spoke, and the world came into existence. So therefore 10, and therefore on Rosh Hashana, which is the day of the creation of the world, where man was created, which the whole purpose of the world is for you, not for the animals, for you. The world was created for Simon, not for the animals. We treat the animals, we take care of them, but not that people think today, they think the world was created for the animals, right? We have to save the animals, everything is to give more respect to the animals than to the people, right? Who comes up? I mean, you're a lawyer, right? what goes on with the dogs? So the Gemara says, "Hachi kama." So therefore, that's why on Rosh Hashanah you should have 10 verses, because connecting to the creation of the world, which was man was created on Rosh Hashanah. Man, meaning Rosh Hashanah is the 6th day of creation, not the first day of creation. Rosh Hashanah is the 6th day of creation, because that's when man was created. Hashem created people on the 6th day because he prepared the job. Day one, and everything was prepared. When man came onto the scene, Hashem already had everything ready for him. He had all the animals ready, he had all the grass, he had all the lights, everything was like everything was ready. But he wanted to prepare for that we should have everything ready. Not that we should come into the world and we have no lights. It's dark, right? Hashem came into the world. You had all the vegetation, you had all the birds, you had all the animals already. So the Gemara says, "Hachi kama." This is how you have to read it. Matchil b'Torah. You start with Torah, umashlim b'Navi, and you conclude with Navi. The first opinion. Rabbi Yossi Omer. Rabbi Yossi says mashlim b'Torah. Rabbi Yossi says, how do you conclude? You conclude b'Torah, a pasuk from the Torah. But the im hishlim. This is what he was saying in the im of the Mishnah was not referring to Torah, a verse of the Torah. If you concluded with a verse from the Navi, Mishim Navi Yotza, then you are Yotze. But really, you're not supposed to conclude with a verse from the Navi. Really, it's better. What's better? You're supposed to conclude the verse from the Chumash. But if you concluded with a verse from the Navi, you don't have to go back. Tanya Namiach. We learned in a Braita like this. We have a support that this is the correct understanding of the Mishnah. Why? Because we have Amar Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Yossi reports the following. He says Vatikin. Now we know Vatikin are the you have here the Vatikin Minyan. What's the Vatikin Minyan? That's the earliest proper Minyan, proper ideal Minyan to have. Is the first that they get up to the Amidah, they get up to the Shemona Esrei right when the sun comes out. They wait for sunrise. Right when the sun comes out, at sunrise, then they start. They start the prayers beforehand. They start the prayers before sunrise, meaning the other parts of the davening. But when the sun comes in and the sun comes out, they wait for the sun to come out. Then they do the steps back and forth to get ready to do the Amidah. They're called Vatikin. Vatikin refers to people that are humble. It's a great love of mitzvah, because if you do the mitzvah, pretty much in the first opportunity to do the mitzvah, that's a sign of love, right? When a person goes down and does the mitzvah later, he delays, that's not, but if you do something the first opportunity, this is the first ideal time to do the mitzvah, is Netzach Hama, sunrise, and I do it at that time, that shows love. So Vatikin, those people, Mashlimim Oto B'Torah, they concluded, when they said the verses of Shofar, the verses of Zechronot and Malchiot, they always concluded with Torah. And that's the way to go. These are the people who are the most diligent in their actions, and they concluded with Torah. So therefore, it shows you that Torah is the proper thing to conclude with. I want to wish everyone a beautiful day, everybody. Ralph, have a very nice day.